In today's special edition of The Point, I'll be looking at China's artificial intelligence boom and the co-opetition that's linking the US and China as a result. Also, smart cities are springing up around China and in other parts of the world, but are they actually sustainable or standing on shaky ground for the moment? What has to be done? I'm Lu Xin. Welcome to The Point. And before we get to my interviews, I want to share my takeaway from Thursday's meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. On Thursday, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Beijing. The two sides talked about Taiwan, trade frictions, and the Korean Peninsula nuclear issue. This meeting fell at a critical juncture. The U.S. was about to release a final list of imported Chinese goods to be taxed, something that China has opposed all along. Let me read between the lines of what the Chinese leaders told Pompeo during the meeting, especially what was said by President Xi Jinping concerning trade frictions. President Xi said 40 years of China's reform and opening up taught us one thing, that the two sides must always correctly read each other's strategic intentions and respect and address each other's core interests and major concerns. What does that mean? Well, don't misread China's mind and respect China's core interests and vice versa. What China wants is peace and development, not dominance. China's core interests and major concerns include the right to develop itself and national sovereignty. These cannot be compromised. In the case of trade, if the U.S. wants China to import more U.S. goods, that is absolutely possible and actually in China's interest, as China wants to expand imports from outside. But if the U.S. intention is to contain China's growth and crush its development, then this becomes a totally different matter. There is no room for bargaining there. Another message President Xi sent out to Pompeo was a wish, or rather a warning. He hoped the U.S. side would carefully handle sensitive issues such as Taiwan and trade and prevent bilateral ties from experiencing major disturbances, quote unquote. That's a very clear message. The ball is in the court of the U.S. side. If they choose consultation, China will more than welcome that. But if they choose confrontation and unilateralism, China will have no choice but to fight back. In fact, China has given repeated warnings against the U.S. taking unilateral actions, saying if the U.S. side imposes any trade sanctions, including raising tariffs, all outcomes of the talks will not take effect. So if the Trump administration still decides that's the risk they want to take to get the ultimate so-called good deal with China, well then, fire away. China is embarking on an unprecedented effort to master artificial intelligence. The Chinese government is planning to pump tens of billions of dollars into the sector, while Chinese companies are investing in AI research and nurturing AI talent. Analysts say if AI is the key to future growth, China's progress in the field will further boost its economic development. Meanwhile, the U.S., as the world's technology powerhouse, is feeling the pressure, and there is a growing call for efforts to prevent China from overtaking the U.S. in AI research and development. Are the two countries bound to engage in a confrontational competition, or will cooperation be inevitable and necessary if both are to excel in AI in the future? Earlier, I talked to Chen Xiaowei, co-founder of Doesnt, a company providing AI solutions to entrepreneurs and professionals, and Harvey Zoding, research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. Take a look. Welcome to both of you to the studio. So it's a big topic, I know, but taking all the factors into consideration, I mean, research or application and commercial scale and all of that. Where is China? Where is the United States? Can we have a picture of that now?
Well, China is catching up very fast. If you look at the world of AI, we can roughly divide it into 3 layers: the infrastructure layer, the technology layer, and the application layer. I would say that currently the U.S. still leads in the infrastructure layer, which includes chips and algorithms and data. But China is catching up very fast in the technology layer and definitely almost leading in the application layer.
And Harvey, what's your take on this?
America clearly is the leader right now.
In what terms?
I would say actually in all terms, because they've been at it longer. But it's been driven by the private sector as opposed to China having top-down and having direct leadership.
But some people are saying that is exactly the problem, because this is not market-driven, this is not the way how companies in the United States or in other Western countries are doing, so this is unfair competition. Xiaowei, you are shaking your head.
I tend to agree with Harvey that both market-driven and government-led efforts are actually acting together to push China's AI forward. The State Council has listed as a goal of China's AI-related industries in the size of 1 trillion yuan by the year 2020, which is only 2 years from now, and 5 trillion yuan by the year 2025, and 10 trillion yuan by the year 2030. So it's a very concerted effort by the government and private sector together. Now, especially in technology, even though Harvey said that the U.S. is leading, U.S. had a head start, let's face it.
Right.
However, in certain technology sectors, China is actually rapidly catching up, and even leading in some areas. For instance, China's iFlyTech recently won. Actually, they've won this kind of competition for years in voice recognition and natural language processing. Now, China's another one of China's company in computer vision, Face++, Kuangshi, has also won computer vision competitions. So, in many specific areas, China is almost leading the world's cutting edge.
Is it fair for China to do this with a lot of big companies, you know, because of such a huge market, and then very strong government boost behind it? Harvey, how do you look at this?
There's the old saying from the 16th century, all's fair in love and war. And so I believe that this is that case, because China was the most powerful country on earth. It's trying to get there again as part of President Xi Jinping's Chinese dream. And I think that all's fair in this endeavor. And what's not fair are other countries like the United States trying to stop them. So this decision with ZTE, for example, the initial decision anyway, was to stop China from being able to use American technology and chips. What happened? China is now on a crash course to develop their own chips so they can be self-reliant.
Let's look at it this way. President Trump was a businessman, and he will remain forever a businessman. He used that to trade for concessions from China to lower the tariffs for U.S. agricultural products and whatnots. So this seemingly technological war, quote unquote, is actually a small part of a larger trade war.
But can the United States really block China from getting any U.S. technological products or any technological know-how and survive and excel?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that they can try to block U.S. high-tech companies from exporting products to China. But these high-tech companies will do their own lobbying to the U.S. government. No, because these days, many Chinese scientists have been educated in the U.S. They are PhDs from MIT, Stanford, you name it. They come back to China. They've learned much of the technology required to develop their own chips. I mean, 2 of my alumni from University of Science and Technology of China have started the AI chip in China, Han Wuji.
Well, but people would then say, look, I told you, these Chinese students or Chinese researchers, scholars coming to the United States, stealing the top, the cream de la cream of the U.S. research and technology and bringing it back to China to benefit China, to catch up with the United States.
I was just going to say, these two alumni that I mentioned, as far as I know, received their their graduate education from the Chinese Academy of Science. So China is perfectly capable, given time, of developing its own core technology. That said, I think, yes, I think co-opetition is a great word. We're not only here for competition, we also need cooperation.
Yeah, Javi.
I think the United States should go right ahead and try to block China because it acts as an incentive for China to do their own development and say, well, if you don't want to be with us, if you want to be against us, we can do it anyway.
Honestly, isn't there anything to gain on the part of the United States to cooperate with China? I just don't believe that it is a one-sided, one-way affair.
Of course there is. But currently, especially with America First policy, it's not going to be possible. I'd love to sit by the campfire with you guys and with the President Trump and sing One World, One Dream and Kumbaya, but it's not going to happen now because we're frenemies, okay? And we're now on the enemy part of frenemies. Before we were friends.
I think that's on the part of the political narrative, on the part of the government, the officials, and the people who are in the news, in the media. But really, on the ground of the companies, of the research institutions, is that really the mentality as well? Shall we? I don't know. Among the business community that you deal with, what are their sentiments towards this competition coming from China?
I think there's a pretty wide gap between the government attitude, and quite frankly, there's a pretty wide gap between, obviously, President Trump and some of the members of the Congress or the Senate. But between the government and the U.S. research community and also in the commercial world, I think cooperation is still largely the word between researchers and the commercial companies. Just recently, Google, for instance, opened its AI research center, headed by one of my alumni.
Google is not even freely usable in China. Why do they decide to do that? That's a very good question.
China has a huge advantage in AI development, which is its population, the amount of data. What really pushes AI technology forward, again, is algorithm, data, and hardware, chips specifically. Now, China's advantage in the data amount is something that both U.S. scientists and Chinese scientists can utilize to further train computers to develop its algorithm.
Yeah, so one of the strengths, having your point.
It's not only the data, that's one thing, but the data is very usable from China because a lot of it is mobile data, and the mobile data is much richer than we have in America. So you guys, in a way, have a lot of advantages. It would be beneficial to cooperate.
When you say you guys, who are you talking about?
You Chinese guys have a lot of things that we could cooperate on, and because we each have different strengths at this point. But unfortunately, I don't see it happening for the moment.
Okay. Do you think there is a kind of a AI race going on, like the kind of arms race that was during the Cold War between China and the United States?
Yeah, clearly there's a race going on. We, the United States anyway, is ahead, and significantly ahead, and China is trying to catch up. And this is the reason why President Trump, or at least the White House, because President Trump wasn't really involved in it, the White House called a summit on technology and science and artificial intelligence.
A conference.
A conference. And this is what you do when you don't want to face issues head on. But the reason this conference was held, a summit it was called, was that the business community mostly was leaning on the White House to provide leadership. And what do? They set up another bureaucracy that has no members, or hardly any members, because President Trump hasn't even named any members like the head of the Science and Technology Office.
I think you're talking about the Select Committee on Artificial Intelligence.
Yeah, that's what it's called, right.
I'm an ultimate optimist in terms of the so-called AI race. I think it's fundamentally different from the Cold War several eras ago. First of all, AI that we develop today, I hope largely, is constructive in opposition to the arms race. The nuclear weapons are destructive.
Okay.
And the nuclear weapons developed during the Cold War can destroy the globe several times over, whereas the AI technology today we develop serves to help the Earth.
Well,
Right.
it's a double-edged sword. I think it can also destroy the globe.
But what are the points you wanted to? Are there any other reasons why you say this is going to be a positive, a benign race instead of a?
I don't think it's going to be a benign race, so-called, but I think that the competition itself helps to drive the AI technology to push itself forward, probably faster than it would have been without the competition.
Okay. Final question. According to a New York Times article, that China will outsmart the United States in the so-called AI race or competition, whatever you call it. And what are your take, Harvey? What do you think will be the outcome?
I don't know. I use the word outsmart because both sides are smart. But I think China will treat this and is treating it.
So will China become the world leader then? Let's talk about it this way.
Yes, I believe so, at least for a time, especially if present trends continue, because they're leading from the top. They're putting in resources. They're directing. They're putting in leadership. And President Trump, or the White House, what did they do? They set up this meaningless committee, and they're relying on market forces. They said, oh, we never put any barriers in the way of Thomas Edison or Henry Ford. Why? Well, let's just get out of the way and let it happen. It doesn't happen that way.
Your take?
I think outsmart is too simple a word, even though media loves simple words. So does President Trump. I think that China and U.S. will be smarter in different areas. I remain to say that China will become smarter and smarter in the application layer, and perhaps deeper in the technology layer, whereas the U.S. will continue to lead most likely in the infrastructure layer, in data, algorithms, and chips.
Anyway, many thanks to my two guests. But Xiaowei, you're going to stay with us, right?
I will.
So, co-founder of doesnt, a company providing solutions, AI solutions to entrepreneurs and professionals, and Harvey Zoding, a research fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. And you've been watching The Point with me, Liu Xin. We'll take a very short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about smart cities that have been springing up in China and in other parts of the world. Are they actually sustainable, or are they standing on shaky ground now? What has to be done? Stay with us. China is considered one of the most industrial countries when it comes to building smart cities, a new concept introduced by urban planners that emphasizes intelligent technology in our daily lives. The smartness refers to the city's technical advantage in transportation, healthcare, public safety and productivity. In Asia, China and the Republic of Korea are among the leading builders of so-called smart cities. And the ROK government has initiated the world's first smart city project more than a decade ago. So why has building smart cities become such a compelling trend in this part of the world? And what role does AI technology play in this process? Still with me in the Beijing studio is Chen Xiaowei from doesnt, and joining us from Seoul, ROK is Ho Jing Choi, Associate Professor in the School of Computing at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology in Daejeon. Professor Choi, thank you for joining us. Let me come to Ms. Chen again. Now, China has designated about 500 cities to be upgraded to smart cities, accounting for about half of targeted smart cities across the globe, to our knowledge. Why do you think we need so many smart cities? Is it because the technology has been developed and needs to be sold and installed, or is it more about civic demand, what communities and citizens are looking for?
I think a little of both, to be honest. I think the concept of smart cities really suits Asian cities because of the population density. And population density creates the problem of traffic congestion, children's education, and healthcare. And so smart cities are really deploying AI technology to help people solve these issues. And that's what civilians need. At the same time, local Chinese governments have a need to demonstrate to central government that they are serious about advancing their cities into the smart era of the world. And so they're using some of their financial budget to deploy these newly developed AI technology.
Professor Choi, what is the story in the ROK? What's behind the rise of so many smart cities in your country?
I don't think the smart cities are so popular in Korea, but even though the government actually claimed the big project of smart city for Songdo and so on, but actually the technologies for smart cities have been actually under development even, I think, for the last 20 years. So among the researchers, the issues related to smart cities are always there. But I am not sure whether really Songdo has actually realized the smart cities. So in terms of the transportation and healthcare and every aspect. But basically my definition of smart city is basically the city has to be provide the awareness for the surveillance and safety and taking appropriate action. But I don't think Songdo has reached that level yet.
Yeah, I think so. But we are going to talk about the case of Songdo, which is quite interesting in just a moment. But let me ask Xiaowei here again. As we have heard from the example of Songdo, many of, or most of these smart cities are currently still in a trial stage. But with such a big number in the pipeline, how can the city really ensure its smartness? What are the factors that need to be in place?
Well, large number doesn't necessarily reduce smartness. In some of the cases, it actually helps smartness. For instance, as I mentioned in the sector before, that computer algorithms need to be trained, and large amounts of data help to train the computer algorithm. So in other words, the more data you have, the smarter the computers can get, and this, obviously the smarter the cities that deploy them can get. So large is actually good in terms of developing smart cities.
Well, on the other hand, how can they, besides being numerous, let's say, how can each city then ensure its smartness? I know it's a very big question, but again, just to give us some idea what needs to be there for the cities to be smart.
I know certain cities have placed their emphasis on smart on traffic control. So they've deployed cameras, smart cameras at traffic lights that monitor traffic flow at certain intersections. So for instance, if during a certain moment or traffic hours, if say south-north traffic is heavier, then they will lengthen the period of green lights. So these are an example. And other cities have placed their emphasis on education. So they've deployed AI technology to either help train students or correct exams. Other cities have deployed AI technology in public safety. I personally know several companies that have deployed computer vision in helping police catch criminals. So smart city governments are deploying AI technology in different sectors. It kind of depends on where each local government's emphasis.
Okay. Professor Choi, let's come back to the case of Songdo, which is dubbed to be the world's first smart city, which is 65 kilometers southwest of your capital, Seoul. Some reports this year have said that the high-tech utopia has faded into a kind of Chernobyl-like ghost town. And just now you were also talking about Songdo being not really a smart city, at least not yet. Why? What factors have contributed to the stagnation?
Okay, I think the Songdo is can be a very good test bed for the testing the various technologies, for various intelligent technologies for smart cities. But the technologies themselves are not yet that level. So, for example, if the city should be able to actually detect, say, crime, for example, through the various CCTVs and so on. And that requires the artificial intelligence technology for activity recognition, which is not yet realized in real life. So actually, even though the government wanted to actually make the Songdo to become a very good example model of a smart city, but the component technologies are not yet reached that level. But I think sooner or later, because of the recent development of machine learning technologies and natural language technologies for the artificial intelligence, so actually I think it will be done. I mean, but not yet.
Okay. Shall we, what is the story in China then? Does the same concern or factor apply to the China story? And are there any other factors that might affect the development of intelligent urbanization in China?
Now, I personally don't see any ghost towns brought about by AI technology in China. The most recent memory of ghost towns in China are real estate overdevelopment.
Right.
Now,
could there be an AI how should I say, avant-garde, or maybe something too much ahead of your time, a vision of AI development?
I don't worry so much about AI overdevelopment. I worry about AI or investments, especially investments by government into AI technology that may or may not bring about fruits. Now, and this will require our government officials to become smarter themselves and to become more educated in AI technology and what AI technology can likely to pen results in the recent future, in the near future.
And Professor Choi, does the intelligent tech itself, especially the advancing AI tech, help solve the problems that we have just mentioned surrounding Songbo? In what timeline do you think Songbo can become a real smart city?
I think the Songdo, the reason why people say that Songdo became a kind of the ghost city is because not many people are living there. So the government made a very good plan for actually the gathering people, so moving into the Songdo. But I think because of there are many buildings, but people are not yet fully with these buildings. So that's why the people say that Songdo is a ghost city, but not because of the artificial intelligence techniques are not really well realized in Songdo. But the thing is that in order for the AI technology being useful, there must be many people, many traffics and many big data. I mean, so the crowdiness has to be providing the data for testing the artificial intelligence techniques. But because of the Songdo was not that fully populated with people as as the government initially planned, that's why Songdo became.
Professor Choi, what about upgrading current cities, current crowded cities into a smart city? For instance, is there any plan to upgrade Seoul in a smart way? Wouldn't that solve the problem that you talked about Songdo?
I think there are many examples, I mean, from time to time. So actually currently AI technologies has actually shown a lot of possibilities so that we can actually apply the AI techniques for some problems, but not as a whole, the problem of the whole city. So for example, the AI technologies are being applied to, say, healthcare area, and then so even for these days, people try to actually use AI technology for doing the medical counseling, even for the mental disorder patient to try to get some help from AI, the AI doctors, for example, so that we can apply artificial intelligence techniques for various sectors of the city, but not making the entire city smart is still not yet.
And that was Chen Xiaowei from WISNUT, and Ho-Jing Choi, Associate Professor in the School of Computing at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. And that is all for this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. using the handle The Point with Alex, and go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got the point.